Thank you, Toastmaster Seema. Well, this is a special session, true, and it's also an informal session. Believe me, I'm not going to drag all of you into another round of table topics. That is not the idea. Well, when I was listening to the table topic session and the table topic master was asking for volunteers, it's always true, isn't it? There's dead silence for some time, then one hand will pop up, some screens will go blank, and if it was a physical meeting, people will start finding their cell phones very interesting. There is something which is going on in our minds which prevents us from jumping up there and taking a shot at speaking. Now, I'd like to take you through a small presentation and also take your opinions as to what matters to you, so that at the end of it, hopefully we'll have a few tips as to how to handle this. And I also share my personal journey and how I overcame some of the problems so that we are in a better position from tomorrow. Let me share a presentation with you. Well, do you know who that is? Actually, the answer is written in the right-hand bottom corner, Rajat Ray. I mean, that's me when I was, I think, 5 years old. And I had been told to go and recite a poem on stage. And that was me again when I was maybe around 12 years old. And I had been pulled into singing for the school choir to be on stage. That was also me when I was perhaps 20 years old, just out of college. And not a stage, but I had to go somewhere equally frightful, maybe in front of a girl and tell her about my feelings. That's me. And that was also 5 years ago when I joined Toastmasters and I was told, why did you come and attempt table topics? And I'm sure that's not just me, that's every one of us at some time or the other of our lives. And whether you are a new Toastmaster or an old Toastmaster, everybody still suffers from stage fright. And this particular discussion that we're going to have is about overcoming stage fright. Now, stage fright does not necessarily mean speaking in public. There is a lot more to it. And before we can delve a little into our mind, we need to understand what this stage fright is about. Stage fright is basically, part of it is performance anxiety. That's a technical term, of course. Now, in situations like this, performance anxiety comes into play. It's a marriage proposal, okay, may not be marriage, maybe a proposal to your favorite person, one-on-one. You may have a performance anxiety. Even if it's a small presentation, you're doing a sales presentation, maybe 2 people, it can be there. Even if it's a group discussion, whether in a business environment or even a group of friends discussing a particular topic where you're required to give your opinion on something or the other, performance anxiety pops into place, doesn't it? Or if it is something we are all very familiar with, public speaking, where a group of people are sitting in front of us, physically or virtually, and we have to address them. Now, all these are situations where performance anxiety comes into play. Now, I have a question for you. In your opinion, and you can answer in the chat box, which is most scary to you? Which of these? Yeah, A, B, C, or D? Just type there. Let me get an idea. D, B, okay. D again, C, B and D. D seems to be coming up more. Preparing, this is girlfriend. B, C, D. Now there's somebody scared of everything. Okay. Right. So we have a large variety of performance anxieties which are there, maybe a little more for C and D. One person very particular about A, others are no problem at all. So let us understand this performance anxiety a little and see whether we can deal with this. What's the anatomy of anxiety? Well, performance anxiety actually has two components. Whenever we want to do something, discuss something with another person, there is one fear which comes into our mind, which is a fear of missing the deal, meaning we are discussing or talking with some objective, which is of particular gain to us. Like even if you're proposing to a girl, there is a possibility of a material loss, right? We are pitching for a way of life. If we are doing it for a sales presentation, yes, there is a fear of missing the deal and so on. And there is another fear, which is psychological. It's not material. It's a fear of losing self-esteem. That in our own eyes, we may become a smaller or a lesser person if you're not able to churn out a good performance. It may not have anything to do with the material loss. It's just that we want to be giants in our own eyes. Right? This fear of losing self-esteem is what constitutes stage fright. And that is something which can be dealt with. If there's a fear of material loss, really it cannot be dealt with. You have to go through with it and see whether you gained or lost. But a psychological case, yes, we can take care of that. Stage fright, the sense of dread, choking, shaky, we know all these feelings, right? That comes out of a fear of losing self-esteem. Now, depending on all these four situations that we discussed there, the proportion of these actually varies. Let me explain. If it's a marriage proposal, for example, probably the material loss fear is much, much more than performance. We're not really worried about exactly how to give a turn of phrase, but if I don't convince that girl, I'm missing out on a partner for life, and that's a major life-change experience. So material loss plays very heavily on the mind. In case of a sales presentation, maybe the balance is a little more because it may affect your incentive or a deal for the company. So there's a material loss, but you also want to turn in a good performance on its own. So it's psychological pressure. If it's a group discussion or a party, a board meeting, you may just be asked for an opinion. The impact on material loss may be less, but you're really worried what your boss will think of you, what your best friend will think of you, what the hostess is going to think of you, right? Psychological issues are more than the material issues. And finally, if you talk about public speaking, especially in a Toastmaster forum, where is the material loss? Unless it's a contest and you really prize that cup which is going to come to you, it's all psychological. You're just faced with a group of people staring at you, and you're worried whether you'll be able to stand up to a certain level in your own eyes. In their eyes, of course, but ultimately in your own eyes. So it's totally psychological. And if it is psychological, I guarantee you it can be dealt with. If it is material, very difficult to deal with. Now, let's look at ourselves once. When we get up to speak in front of a group like this, like in Toastmasters. Imagine Toastmaster, physical meeting, you got up on stage, maybe it's a table topic, maybe it's a prepared speech, but there are 25 pairs of eyes staring at you. Have you realized that in normal life, at a time, not more than one or two people stare at you? And when you suddenly see the shock of 25 pair of eyes, it's a totally unusual experience for most of us. Difficult to handle. So for you, what is the scariest thought which goes through your mind? Just throw your mind back to the last time you stood up to speak, or the first time you stood up to speak. What is it that goes through your mind which scares you witless? You can use the chat box. Let's see. My God, ... What is that ... Yeah, let's have some thoughts. Judgment. People are going to judge, okay? What else? Anything more? What if people don't understand? I will forget what I wanted to say, drifting away from the topic, freezing in middle of speech. If I go wrong, all right. There are various things which go through our minds. Good. There are various things which used to go through my mind. We'll put it together in the end and see how we can handle these thoughts. Because once we have handled a thought, it's easy to do what you went up there to do, right? Let's digress for a minute and ask you another question. Before you answer, tell me, what is the opposite of fear? Because fear is what you're feeling there, right? What is the opposite of fear? Let's have an answer on the chat box. What's the opposite of fear? Or being scared? Confidence. All right. Anything else? Comfort, carefree. Okay. I think we have got the gist of it. Confidence is also right, but in my mind, the opposite of fear is not courage. It's like saying that opposite of fire is water. It's not so. You put out fire with water, it's true. It's a tool. Courage is a tool to overcome fear. But the lack of fear is actually comfort. When you're comfortable, be sure that you're not fearful, right? So if in front of people, standing on stage, you feel comfortable, you will not have fear in your mind. Isn't that logical? So let me ask you this question. Who are you most comfortable talking with? Who are you most comfortable talking with? Your father? Your wife? Family and friends? Okay. What else? Anything else? Maybe you're most comfortable talking to horror story characters. There are some people like that. Known people, people smiling at you. All right. So we have a band of people whom you're comfortable talking to. People having the same mindset as you, right? You may not know that when you're talking to them, but yes, that's true. If you have that confidence, you will be. Now let me share with you a bit about my own journey and who I am comfortable talking with. First, I'm most comfortable talking with myself. It's the mirror or the wall if the mirror is not there. Preferably not to people. Second, I'm most comfortable talking to children. Yeah? I'm sure most of you are also. And giving a speech to a child is not a problem, right? Third, I'm most comfortable talking to friends, those you're close to, friends or family for that matter. Anybody who has your interests at heart, right? Myself, children, friends. Now you'll have your own list, but by and large, I have used these three groups of people as tools to overcoming scary thoughts. My set of scary thoughts have been similar to yours. So what I want to do right now is to take you through what used to scare me when I started speaking on stage and how I could use some tools here and there to rewrite those scary thoughts. So this is what we're going to look at now, how to rewrite the scary script. We will look at the scary script and we'll look at what is the new script that you want to write in your head, that is, the thought in your head, and how to do this change deliberately so that the new thought starts running. See, ultimately our thoughts are programmed. Just as your scary script is popping up without you having any control over it, it is our hope. No, it's our belief, my belief, that as you deliberately do your new scripting, the new script starts popping up in your head. Now let's look at some of the scary scripts, so to say, that were holding me back when I got up on stage. And this applies to paired speeches or table topics or evaluation speeches, anything. Can be impromptu, can be prepared. Most of the comments mentioned here applies to the physical stage. In fact, the virtual stage is a bit easier. So how it applies to virtual also I will mention. First, trouble that I used to get, like I told you, very few situations in life in a normal day where 25 pairs of eyes will be staring at me. So many people are staring at me at the same time. Very, very unnerving, especially if you're a new speaker and if you're on a physical stage. This is something which is going to stop you dead in your tracks to start with. So what is a new script? They don't exist. This is what I used to use. How do you imagine they don't exist? That is, I'm talking to somebody I'm most comfortable with, which is nobody. I'm talking to myself. In a physical meeting, how do you imagine they don't exist? Either look above them. If they're sitting in front of you in a group, look at the wall above them. That plays hell with eye contact, I know. But right then, you're keen to just get going. Eye contact is a very advanced thing. So look above them, look at the wall. Don't worry about them. And if you're able to look at them, okay, then eye contact is taken care. Don't look at their eyes. I used to look here at the forehead. Because as soon as you look at the eyes seem to drill into your soul, and all the good thoughts that you had in your mind go out of both ears. In a physical meeting, look above them. Look at their forehead. Don't look at the eyes. They don't exist. That is the first level of handling scared thoughts, scary script. So many people are staring at you. Now in a virtual situation, it's a bit easier because it's very easy not to look at them. You have to look at the camera, right? So if you diligently look at the camera, you automatically don't look at the people. Anyway, half their screens are switched off, so it's not that big a challenge. And it is also a good idea to perhaps put a paper clip beside the camera and look at the paper clip. You need something to look at, right? So when you look at the paper clip, or stick your own picture there, look at yourself and talk, or keep it on speaker mode. As soon as you start speaking, your own picture will come full screen. Look at yourself and talk. Through all these modalities, you can write the script in your mind that these other guys, they don't exist. I am talking in an empty room. I am comfortable. Now, this is very, very hardcore tactics meant for a situation where you're not able to handle even looking at your audience. Of course, we can go a little deeper and say, okay, I'm comfortable looking at the audience, but I have this fear inside me that I am at their mercy. Because all of them, they've been Toastmasters so long, and they may be experts in their own fields. They know much more than me. And I always used to have this feeling that Baba either kidhar aake khada kar diya, where have they put me up? All these guys are all dadas sitting there. What will I open my mouth and talk in front of them? That is the scary script which goes on in the mind. What is a new script that you need to write, deliberately need to write? They are at my mercy. I know more than them. How do you write the script? Use that second comfort tool. I always imagine that if I look at them, that they are my friends. Sorry, I imagine that they are a set of children sitting there. You know, just imagine them, shrink them, 1/3 their size in their chairs. Chotu guys sitting there. They are at my mercy. I know much more than them, particularly in this particular prepared speech, for example. If I made ready, it's my subject. What do they know? I know. They are at my mercy. I am speaking to children. Use this imagination that there's small kids sitting there. You'll find that your confidence goes up by leaps and bounds. In the case of virtual podium, anyway, there are small squares on the screen. Imagine the children. You know, maybe your wife is a teacher and you've seen her taking classes. With all the, I see in the Gavel Club, my wife is taking a Gavel Club session, all children's faces there, quick. Imagine like that. They are at my mercy. Shut up and sit down, okay? And how are you going to do that? If it's a physical meeting, how do you boost that confidence? Just look around. Stand still and look around for 5 to 7 seconds. Whether it's a prepared speech or it's a table topic or evaluation, just keep still, look around for 5 to 7 seconds. Use that imagination in your mind, shrink them down, and smile. You are in control. Smile throughout the room and everybody. Guys, you don't know what's going to hit you type of smile. No? They are at your mercy. Look around 5 to 7 seconds, smile. You can do this in the virtual platform also. Of course, you cannot look around, but you look at the camera and smile. Look around once and imagine as children, then look at the camera and smile. Rub your cheek, 5 to 7 seconds. Imagine you're the boss. Okay? That takes care of the second seript. Let's look at the third one. They are ready to criticize me and laugh at me. That is their whole purpose in life. To sit in the audience, be ready with their notebooks and their mental notebooks to note down what all I'm doing wrong, and they're going to laugh at me either directly or snigger at each other. Kya baat karta hai? Where has this guy come from? Believe me, that is not their purpose in life, the audience. But it seems to me like that they're going to do that. Now, how do I remove this thought from my head? I use my third comfort tool and imagine that they are my friends. This is not too much of imagination, especially in Toastmasters. They are your friends. If you are doing a presentation in your work, in your job, I cannot guarantee that all of them are your friends, but it does well to imagine this, that they are my friends, right? In Toastmasters, just close your eyes and imagine. All of them are your friends. You don't have to worry about this at all. If it's a physical meeting, what I used to do, interact a little with them before speaking. Because then they are humanized. We know that they are friends. ऐसे ही बात करता है, मजाक करता है. We have fun with them. So obviously they are not somebody who is going to criticize you at the drop of a hat. And if it's a physical meeting, also a meeting in a virtual stage, it's a good idea to focus on a few people who are actually smiling at you. There are some Toastmasters who are very, very friendly by nature, who always smile and nod their heads. To feel comfortable, just focus on them. There will be 3-4 like that, probably spread in the room. So after you've done your initial scan and you know who they are, just keep speaking to them. You can ignore eye contact with everybody for the time being or do it once. But for your own comfort, your own confidence, to revive your skill in speaking, it is a very good strategy to focus on the people who smile. In fact, if you are very, very nervous about it, tell one of your close people in the audience, please smile so that I can talk to you. Whether it's a physical one or a virtual one. In the beginning, you can cheat a bit like that. Tell them to smile so that I will focus on you and speak. It's nice to see a friendly face there. So, either imagine they don't exist, you're speaking alone, or you know more than them, they are just children, or they are anyway my friends. Use these scripts to drive out those scary things from your mind. There are a couple of more things which come when you're delivering speeches. This I used to feel very often, that I'm going to give a 7-minute speech, they are going to get bored. Actually, it's not the goal of life to keep people entertained. If they want to get bored, they can jolly well get bored. But let us suppose for the time being, you don't want your audience to get bored, right? Because if you feel they're getting bored, you're going to lose your trend and your own confidence. What do we do about this? Very simple. You believe that you have interesting things to tell. And in most cases, it is true. If you work particularly on a prepared speech, I'm sure all of us put in interesting stories in the beginning, in the middle. If it's a table topic, drag in a personal example. Why do people talk so much about personal examples? Because that makes a speech interesting automatically. And this scare, they will get bored. Will never, if you have interesting things in your prepared speech and the ability to put in a personal example in your table topic. If you're confident about doing these things, you need not at all have this fear that they will get bored. Believe me, just because an audience is looking at you seriously, doesn't mean they're bored. It means they're paying attention. It's only when you see them looking down at their lap or at their phone, you need to get worried. Otherwise, if they're looking at you like a dead fish, that we use that simile, that's staring at you in a manner, very piercing eyes, they're probably hanging on to every word that you're saying. No need to worry. Not everybody will be nodding and smiling. Some of you will also be looking at you like an eagle, and they are as interested as your smiling friends in your speech. As long as you're interesting things to tell, your audience will be interested. Don't worry that they will get bored. 90% of the audience is not bored with any speech they hear. Yeah? Don't worry about it. And lastly, big challenge. I might forget. And as a corollary of I might forget, what I used to do, I used to try and get out the speech as quickly as possible, especially if it's a prepared speech. When I practice at home, it is 7 minutes. When I deliver there, it is 5 minutes. Why? Because I'm worried that if I slow down, if I give a pause, if I look around, if I change stage, position, take too long to do that, they might at one get bored. And second is I might myself lose track. So let me in one string let out the full thing fully, as if you're reciting a poem when you're in class 2. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, like that. Yeah? That same mentality is carrying on here. Let me get it out quickly. Now, this is something which is not a deal breaker, but obviously you want to be better than that, right? So what is the new script you want? You need the confidence that I know my subject fully, correct? If it's a prepared speech. Obviously, table topic, you cannot really promise yourself that. It has to be on the go. But if it's a prepared speech, I know my subject fully, and I want to enjoy delivery. When you're stood up there and you're looking around 5 to 7 seconds, smiling, you're in control, you tell yourself this, I know my subject fully, and I want to enjoy the 7 minutes. I don't want it to be hell, I want it to be heaven, right? I don't want to be eating Karela, I want to be eating a chocolate right now. I know my subject fully, I want to enjoy delivering, for which you need a bit of help from your own self. Please prepare thoroughly. Obviously, if you have not prepared your speech thoroughly, your fear of forgetting is real, right? It's not a psychological thing, it's a material loss there. Yeah? If you've prepared yourself thoroughly, and you're aware that you're prepared thoroughly, put it out of your mind that you might forget. There's nothing more likely to make you forget than to think that you might forget. If you believe you will not forget, you will not. The mind is a funny place. Prepare thoroughly. Prepared speeches, I used to practice them 10, 12 times before delivering. I suggest you do that, put aside the time. Otherwise, this last fear will not let go of you fully. Yeah? And when you know your subject thoroughly, when you know that you will not forget, you will be able to speak slowly, that is in the speed at which you planned it, with pauses at the relevant places, and look at your audience and make sure they're reacting in the correct way, they're understanding what you're saying. And when you're able to do that, you will enjoy your speech, won't you? So please prepare thoroughly. That is the surest antidote to the fear of I might forget. That you will not speak fast, you will speak slowly, you will emote better, you will stress better, and you will enjoy delivery. So to summarize, these were my 5 fears, and I think those which you mentioned are more or less covered here. Many people staring at me. I used to use the trick, they don't exist. I'm at their mercy. No, they are at your mercy. They're ready to criticize, actually not so, but really, they are your friends. Why should they? They will get bored. They will not. You have interesting things to tell. Make sure they are there. I might forget. So let me reel it out. Prepare thoroughly, and then your mind will be full of the subject. You will enjoy delivering. I hope these have given you some tips, especially those who are beginners and who are maybe at level 1, level 2 in this table, and even for people who have been speaking for some time and who still get this fear that the listeners may get bored and I might forget. So I'm sure there is something for all of you here. Overcoming stage fright is not magic. It needs a bit of effort. It needs a bit of effort to be aware. When you're rewriting a script, it needs some awareness, right? And preparation. So what I've given you here is what awareness you need and what preparation you need. As a last parting shot, I've been working with Toyota dealership for a long time, and Toyota, is very famous for quality management. All their products are top notch, high quality. And we always had the impression that quality is the only thing you should concentrate on. And perhaps Toyota company looks at all the cars being wheeled out, and out of 100 cars, if 60 are bad, they will throw them out and ensure only 40 goes forward. No, they don't do that. They will not compromise on their production. They will not compromise on their production because Akio Toyoda used to say, ensure quantity first, quality will follow. And if I were to tell you in that same language, ensure that you speak first. Speaking better will follow. That's all from my side. If you have any questions, maybe I can take a few.